Sound.
Sound speeds.
Camera roll.
Scene 7, take 2.
Mark it. Frame.
3, 2, 1, action. Hey, how's everyone doing? It's been a hot minute since I made one of these, like a video. Been kind of very, very busy, so I got a chance to do it. I got a chance to live out, I think, every filmmaker's dream, which is to direct my first feature film. Something that I've been kind of aiming for a while, and it has been a wild ride, to say the least. This video in specific is more about just things that I feel like I've learned through the process. When I was making a feature, I would watch a lot of videos. I would talk to a lot of people on what they've kind of learned and advice that they would kind of give. We're going to kind of start from the starting point, which is not pre-production, before pre-production. For the first thing, the starting point. The biggest thing is, I imagine that there's like a lot of different levels of filmmakers that are going to be watching this video. Some people might have already done features and they're just trying to listen just to listen. In which case, honestly, leave some of your kind of thoughts on what you've learned in the comments below. I would love to learn even more. I'm going to be talking to also like people that haven't made a short at all, people that made a couple of shorts, people that made a couple of shorts and don't really understand how to take it to the next level. I feel like that's where I was for the longest time. As much as this feature was partly luck in a sense, it was also a lot of like hard work and a lot of like putting eggs in the right baskets and then a few of those hatching. That's kind of like the analogy that I use. First thing is, networking is everything. Now this is pretty cliche, obviously. So the big thing I'll say is you got to do it with intention, right? The first thing you got to understand is like, who are you, right? Like if you ask anyone around me, I've never really positioned myself as like a PA or someone that will production manage or do all these things. Like I've done these things for filmmaker friends that I've had that didn't really know anyone or just needed someone to do something. But I've made it very clear that I've marketed myself as this writer-director. Something a producer friend of mine told me that really stuck with me is he said how if you position yourself, let's say like a PA, it's very hard for you to then get work as other things. Let's say you are a writer-director, right? And then now you're like, okay, I really need work. I really need work as a production coordinator. It's going to be hard to get that work immediately within your network because when they're going to be looking for production coordinators, they're not really going to think of you because to you, you're a writer-director. And this is not something conscious. They're not being like, ooh, that guy, he probably doesn't know what he's doing. I'm not going to hire him as a production coordinator. It's more like, oh, I need a production coordinator. Who do you guys know? And your name just never pops up. The second part to networking is, especially when you're networking in the hopes to get done a feature. Yes, you want to make sure that the people that you're going to hope to kind of bring onto your team are very talented, very skilled. But unless you already have all the money collected, you have like a good budget, and so now you're able to just kind of go at it. Unless you have that already, you want to make sure the people, a lot of the key creatives that you know are going to need to put a lot of hours, up and coming, you can still find people that are very talented. You don't want them to be too experienced. I remember listening to Robert Eggers on the Deacons podcast talk about how an advice he got was you want to make sure your DP isn't so much more experienced than you because otherwise he will eat you alive.
A more experienced director was like, don't try to get a DP who's like 10 years older than you and like way more experienced than you, or he's just gonna like steamroll you. So find somebody. Like look at some look at some reels of DPs who you can tell, and find someone who's good but is also like starting out.
I want to make sure that my DP is kind of like alongside me in a sense. Someone that's on the come up, someone that's going to gain a lot by DPing a feature. And so as a result is going to be willing to put in the hours This leads me to my next point, which is once you kind of gather the team that you're trying to gather, you want to be able to give them a sandbox to play in. And what that means is you want to be able to let them have the creativity so that they can feel like the decisions they're making, the inside the film that you guys are all making, that they feel like they have a sense of ownership. And they get that sense of ownership when they have an interesting idea, and then that idea comes through in one way or another into the actual film. You really want everyone to feel the sense of ownership, because it's only then that they're not just coming into work, that they're coming into a passion project, and that you then start to feel more and more people put in 150%. The third point in the starting point is don't rush your script. A lot of times it's easier to spend a lot more time on a script once you don't have the funding for it. But sometimes what happens is like you'll get the opportunity to make it, or you'll get the funding for it, and you then start rushing the script based on the budget that you have now to fit that budget so that you can just go out and make it. But you really still want to spend a lot of time to make sure that the script works, the story works, the dialogue works. The script is just the blueprint. The actual film is likely going to be different. And so you just want to make sure that the actual pieces you're getting, what works. This actor might not perform the dialogue that you wrote the best. Maybe you want to rework the dialogue. A lot of stuff like that. You really want to see what you actually have, then be able to give the script the time to bake so that you can then adjust it accordingly. We're going to move into pre-production. The first point in pre-production is you want to make sure you have enough time with your DP and your production designer. These guys are your right and left hands. So the big thing that you want to do is go through every creative idea that you have in your head, put it on a piece of paper, make sure that these guys understand your creative mind the most possible so that they can then make creative decisions without you even needing to like look at what they're saying. Me and my DP got to the point where he was chiming in on creative ideas, and I could bounce off of that, and I for never once was worried, oh, what is he gonna say? Maybe it's not the right idea. It's like 95% of the ideas that my DP ended up mentioning were things that just helped. And sometimes even when he's like not saying something I could use, I end up changing my initial idea because of what he mentioned. Just because he understood what we're going for, and the way we did that is spending a lot of time. We went to shot designer, we laid out all like what our locations were on like a top view on shot designer, where the characters are gonna move, what this scene's gonna look like, where the camera's gonna be. This is after the shot list. The shot list is just like an initial idea. This was on top of that. We showed the production designer a lot of this stuff as well. Like, we didn't have the longest time in pre-production, but I thought we were quite efficient with our time. Before I even entered pre-production, I called a couple of director friends of mine that have done features, and I asked them what's like advice that you could give me, and one of the things that they said was over communicate with all your head of departments. And that's something that I really took to heart. I would have loved a lot more time for pre-production, but I think I spent my time pretty well, in my opinion, and I just kept talking to all of my heads of department about everything that I could think of. And to me, that's a good advice, especially for you going into a project. Talk to every single one of your heads of department and over communicate with them. Tell them everything that you can think of in your head. And if you have a creative idea in your head, write it down. It's less for you, it's more for them, right? So that you can show them what the idea is so that they can be on the same page. And the last thing is make sure you have a good first AD. I know sometimes some productions don't have the luxury of having one person just doing first AD by themselves. Maybe it's a producer that's also doing it, whatever it is. But you just want to make sure that you have whoever it is, that they know what they're doing, and that what you're doing right here is not just finishing a film. That's not the goal. The goal is to make a good film, which leads into my next point, which is the first point in production, and that is culture. There is a set culture, and it is established by a lot of like the producers, director, first AD, and as a director, you want to make sure that the set culture is good. And part of that, in my opinion, is from my perspective, is The day is about telling a good story, getting good footage, not just about finishing the day. And you can start to fall into the trap quite easily when you're on a feature and there's a lot of stress because you got to make the day and you don't really have the luxury of another pickup day or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, when you're filming, you want to make sure that what everyone's trying to do is come up with something good, and we're not just like, okay, we're good, we're done, let's move on. Which is quite easy to fall into that trap. Second point for production is don't skip on audio. When you're looking at visuals, your DP is looking at them, you're looking at them, Video Village is looking at them, which means Video Village is like a lot of different heads of department. For your audio, no one's really looking at it. Everyone's just listening in the moment, right? Which is good, but sometimes if you cheap out on your audio might not always turn out like how the moment was. Something I learned quick on this production is I wish I had context, which is just their ability to like have a headset that can connect right into the audio mix, so you can kind of listen to what's going on, especially if your actors are far away. I made it work, and our audio turned out well because we made sure to get a good audio person. But that is something that I would say is, especially if you're finding ways to cut down on costs, I recommend not cheapening out on audio. Spend a lot of time with your actors. Even before you truly start pre-production, if you have one or two main actors already picked, I would recommend spending a lot of time with them, just chatting, watching movies, just talking to them, even not film stuff. It's a luxury if they're producers onto the project, because you just get a chance to spend a lot more time with them. You really get a chance to see what makes them tick. If you get a chance to know what makes them tick, you'll really be able to like know how to talk to each actor, how to make their performance more intense, less intense, more cheerful, more gleeful. Like, you really get a chance to like really understand how an actor works, how they work, because each actor is quite different. Which also leads me into something that we learned is your day players. So the actors that are coming in for, let's say, smaller roles just for 1 or 2 days, each day player is quite different. And so as a director, you'll really have to know the kind of actor you're working with. Some actors will literally be able to give you stellar performances in 2 to 3 takes, and some actors need like 7 to 10 takes. And what I mean by that is some actors like will get better and better as the takes go on, and some actors are just good off the bat. You just need to know the kind of actors you're working with, and and if you have the luxury to schedule more time for these day players, it'll probably help you. And the last point, because in production I wanted to put in 4, and this is like a smaller point, but if you have the luxury, don't let your actors bring their own costumes. You might not have this luxury. We didn't have this luxury, but something that I wish I did was we had an actor who wore our own boots, and that's fine. It looked great, but it was more of like, we were like, hey, maybe we wanted to get an insert on just the shoes walking in, something after where we realized in the edit, and we're like, oh no, we don't own these costs. We didn't own those shoes, so we can't get that shot because the actor's not there anymore. So it was unfortunate. We did learn from it. It's probably not something you can always have the luxury for, because I know how it is when you're making short films and features on low budgets. You're just like, hey, you're just telling actors this is what the character's like, just wear something from your closet, and that's just what it is. But if you have the luxury, especially the small things, I recommend maybe not like a lot of the big clothes, but maybe like gloves, scarves, shoes, things like that. If you could control those, then you might have the luxury to like get insert shots that might help. You never know. That's going to be it. If you guys want me to go in even more detail or talk more about my film or whatever it is, I might do that next time, or you can just let me know. Also, if you have any advice, especially filmmakers that have done features, whatever it is, please leave it down in the comments below. I'm going to be I've been planning a lot more on my podcast as well, so I might be doing that a lot more regularly. I'm at least hoping to, especially on my off time, especially now that I'm done filming my feature. My feature is called Midnight Dreamers, by the way. I'll leave like the IMDb, and so you guys can start looking into what I'm kind of cooking, but I'll be giving you guys a lot more detail about that soon. So for now, if you guys did like the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if it's your first time here. It probably is. Peace.